Tim Price here for TimPriceJazz.com. We're going to talk about some stuff to check out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you first some vinyl, since vinyl's coming back, right? And also some things that have influenced me as a young man that I hope somewhere along the line some people can really hear. The first one is this, Eric Kloss, Lovin' All That Jazz. This contains one of the greatest organ rhythm sections in the world, Don Patterson and Billy James. And years later, Pat Martino was involved in these collaborations as well. This to me is some of the strongest music that Prestige put out, and also Kloss might have been 18 and 19 and playing like soul jazz. This sounds just, this has been with me since I've been a teenager. I talk about this a lot. Another one from Eric's library of recorded things contains Jackie Byard, DeJohnette, Pat Martino, Bob Cranshaw. This is where Eric started to make some changes in the music. Things became a little more modal. There was some time things going on. Very incredible stuff. And also, if you want to make something modern and you want to make something forward in motion, putting Jackie Byard in the mix is like buying an encyclopedia. Another thing from that same Eric period was To Hear Is to See with Chick, Dave Holland, and DeJohnette. Of course, this is very similar to what a lot of people would do with players, is they'd get the Miles Davis rhythm section and they'd go into the studio. This has some very passionate saxophone playing on it, alto and tenor. Again, also Eric with Barry Miles. This is just a duet. You can start to hear some music that Eric and Barry were thinking about and playing for years coming together here. Also, before I went to Berkeley, I had been aware through hearing him with Buddy Rich, a saxophonist named Ernie Watts. This was one of the first Ernie Watts records I ever got. It's called Planet Love, Discovery by Charles Lloyd. If you can find it, or you can someday, maybe somebody will put it out as a reissue on a CD, but Discovery, this is, I'm still listening to it. I'll talk about some books. Not everyone has always the same taste, so I'm going to try to stay towards things that are musical. The first one would be Playing It By Ear by John LaPorta. This is one of John's only autobiographies, and you can order it through Cadence. John was a lifelong friend of mine. I had him at Berkeley. He was one of the greatest jazz clarinet players. He was one of the greatest jazz educators. When I ordered this book, I never asked John to autograph it. If you know John, you know that that might not have been part of John's decorum. And so I just ordered the book, and we were in touch for years after I graduated from Berkeley. But what he wrote on here still touches me to this day. It says, to Tim Price, we do have a shared common bond. Anybody that knew John LaPorta and was aware of him, John wasn't somebody who passed out comments like that. That, to me, was more important than any diploma or degree I could ever get. I've always been fascinated by other parts of the world and how they played jazz. When I was younger, I found a record called The Trio by John Sermon. And I actually got a chance last October to talk to Sermon about it. And he told me some really cool stories about that. But the highlight of a lot of things is right here. Northern Sun, Southern Moon. It's a fantastic book. It's published by Yale University Press. Mike Heffley wrote it. There's a lot of things in here about some great players. Kenny Wheeler, Skidmore, Evan Parker, all those guys. People that I've always had the ultimate respect for, but also Someday I want to be able to catch Alan Skidmore and Trevor Watts and all those guys myself. But this book is a great doorway into Europe's contribution to jazz, free jazz, and forward thinking. It's a great book. Going the complete opposite, Bud Powell. This book, my friend Frank Lowe turned me on to. You can get this at the Jazz Record Center in New York. Be prepared to spend a few days there. It's by Alan Groves and Alan Shipton. Again, it's published by Bayou Press and Oxford. It's not that hard to find, but it's going to take a little journey. This is fantastic. I am completely in love with everything Bud Powell ever did. And this is about the life of Bud. There's some great pictures in here. Some really great documentary about things with Bud. Check it out. Now we go to some CDs. One of my favorites. I find myself listening to this all the time, and I think it's, you know, you talk about the vibe of the music and how people relate to things. Dexter Gordon, live at the Amsterdam Paradiso. You can thank my friend Hans Dolfer for this. This has an incredible feel and groove. The Paradiso is a place unto itself. The Rolling Stones have played there. Hans's daughter Candy has played there. This record has a certain essence and energy that is just so much fun to listen to. Plus, it might be one of the best versions of Fried Bananas, if you're into that kind of thing. Another one I started listening to this week that just sticks to my fingers is Irv Williams. Irv is a saxophone player in the Minneapolis area, and I got turned on to him when I was playing the Artist Quarter out there with Kenny Berger and Kenny Horst and all those guys. This is some fantastic saxophone playing on standards like Polka Dots and Moonbeams and Laura. Irv has the sound. He is that guy. I've also been into a James Clay thing lately. James Clay and Bill Perkins, called The Right Chemistry, and the sound of the wide open spaces, James and Fathead Newman. You want to talk about some greasy tenor madness? Right here. That's where yours truly got some of that from. And on this one, it's nice because this is highlighted by Billy Mintz on drums. And it sort of opens up the rhythm section. Billy is a very modern drummer. My favorite record that Mingus did, Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, it contains some of the best Charlie Mariano from that period. Speaking of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis area, we can't go further when we talk about Minneapolis and not mention Bob Rockwell. This is something that Bob sent to me the other year called Bob's Bend. Ben Sidran's on it, and it's a reflection of the music and the feeling of Ben Webster. Need I say more with Bob Rockwell? Check everything he did out. When I get into things and I start getting into a certain period of time, Brew Moore is somebody I always go to. People talk about players that were influenced by Lester Young. This guy has taken a lot of that language and brought it into a certain focus all of his own. Yusef Lateef. This might be, in my humble opinion, some of the most interesting Lateef. It's got Clark Terry on it, Tate Houston on Barry. One of the real cool jazz bassoon players of the early 60s, Hosea Taylor, the Censure, and the Phoenix. It's on Riverside, of course. Last but not least, the master, Ira Sullivan, with one of the coolest Chicago tenor players, Nicky Hill. It's on Delmark Records. There's nothing like Ira Sullivan. And this also, again, I get crazy sometimes, but Secret Love on here is just repeatable. You just listen to it over and over. So, that's what's been in my ear. Hope that helps.